The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, the sons of God are always, when used in this sense, speaking of angelic beings. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown.
I've yet to come across a tribal member from a tribe that does not have stories of giants roaming the land. And the star people came from the seven sisters. The seven sisters being what we call the constellation of the Pleiades. The seven sisters and also the warrior's belt, which we know today as Orion. So from the belt of Orion, from that belt and from the seven sisters is where these star people came from. And the star people would come, they made themselves out to be gods because they had power, they had big medicine, like our people say. They were able to do great feats that the people were just astonished by. And so they took them to be gods because that's what they presented themselves to be. In that manner is how they then went and took the women from the different tribes. And from there is where the giant tribes were birthed from. The women did not survive the births of these giant beings. But as these giants continued to procreate and continued to spread across the land, there's many stories of the people and the tribes fighting against them. Sometimes, with good results, sometimes with bad results, until eventually there was a culmination of the flood that came and destroyed the giants off the land. We still have some stories of giants after the flood. Ishtipapa, which was a giant that lived in Georgia among the Muskogee Creek. Ishtipapa means man-eaters, because these giant beings would just come and take a regular-sized human being and just pick them up and just bite their head off and just drink the blood. Like popping the cap on a bottle. Boom, 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 boom. The stars, the constellations, the astronomy of the ley lines of the constellations, that's something that was taught to us by the star people. It was knowledge that was given to our ancient ancestors. At Okmulgee, Georgia, in Macon, Georgia, modern-day Macon, Georgia, there's the remains of an earth lodge that is perfectly aligned for the summer equinoxes and the spring equinoxes. And so it was believed that when the people would gather there during those times, that those portals would open, those doorways would open, and it would open the lines of communication and also for these spirit beings to come through, and whether it was teach, trade, or even take people with them, they would do that.
And the angels, which kept not their first estate, that means heaven, but left their own habitation and came to this world, of course, and took wives, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. That's to say, the fallen angels and their progeny, those that left their first estate, it sealed their death sentence. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. It went on night and day. In Matthew 24, Jesus said, hey, you know what it's going to be like when I return to this earth? It's going to be just like it was in the days of Noah. They're going to be giving and taking in marriage and dancing. That, with who? With the fallen angels. God created the woman to bear children, giving each entity an opportunity to pass through this earth age to love God or Satan. And these particular angelic beings Rather than to be born to woman, they came and took her to wife, meaning they seduced her. Don't ever think for a minute Satan did not know which people it would be through which woman would give birth to Messiah. He knew, and he was trying again to destroy that woman, as simply as he had in the impregnation that brought forth Cain. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. They had not intermixed with the fallen angels or anyone else that had. They still had a spotless pedigree. I know this makes some people nervous, but that's what it means, their lineage. Because Satan tried to destroy that lineage, because it would be this man, Ha-Adam, through Noah now, in those genes, that would bring forth the Christ child. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth, or it means destroy them from the earth. But with thee will I establish my covenant. This is my contract. And thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Now remember, they had perfect genes of Adam. They hadn't mixed. They were all Adamic, whereby Christ could come of that family. 8 Adamic souls. Does that mean everybody else died? Well, we know they didn't, because the Kenite is still with us, and so are the other races.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping.
The seal tells you what is therein. All right, it seals it so nobody can change it for you. The flood of the end times mentioned in Revelation chapter 12 is not a flood of water, but a flood of lies that this same destroyer, Satan, who brought this wickedness into the world, will flood the religions with lies, and you had better be covered over or pitched over in the ark of the end times, which is to say the truth, with Christ to protect you, or you will be in the middle of those lies of deception, listening to Antichrist saying he's come to rapture you out before the true Messiah returns. Revelation 12:7, when Michael cast them out to the earth de facto, not just Satan's spirit, but he walking again on the earth to test this generation when he comes as the false Christ, or some call Antichrist. It's going to happen. The animalistic traits certainly came forth when you put the supernatural among them, but you haven't seen anything yet. Judgment starts at the pulpit, for the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first began at us, What shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God? What is the gospel? It's the good news. God's spell upon man, which is to say his word that communes with you. You better pay attention to him. You better give him the credit, and you better keep your eye off man, because God loves you. Do you realize what awaits you if you've heeded the fiery trial? Because everybody's going to have that fiery trial. There's not anybody perfect. God's going to light a fire under your feet occasionally. Fair judgment is that you have amassed a great sum of righteousness. You got a great payday coming. Rewards. And judgment is a wonderful day for you.
The plan of Satan to deceive the human family this way, he says, is the most intriguing thing to his mind. And he went on saying how it was going to be brought about. He said that a fellow by the name of Darwin and another fellow by the name of Thomas Henry Huxley would be used by the spirits because in their childhood they had been hypnotized by medical doctors. And they figured that they would be real good subjects to lead the people into this belief that they had, that Satan wanted to bring into people's lives.
The three things were, number one, that they did not want Satan did not want the human family to think that he or his angels existed.
Right.
The second point that you made had to do with taking control of people's minds.
That's right.
The third point was what?
Was to destroy the Bible without burning it.
Okay.
See?
And what was the strategy on that?
On that, it was very interesting. Because after the Great General Council, it was decided that Satan would tutor Charles Darwin personally in setting up the principles of his theories of evolution. He was tutored by Lucifer himself, Father Lucifer. And at that time, it was understood, Satan and his spirit counselors understood, that if a person was led to believe in the theory of evolution, it would, in his life, destroy completely the creation week of the Bible, the fall of man, and plan of redemption. It would do away with it.
In one fell swoop.
Yeah. Now, he made a unique statement. He said that according to the spirits, anyone that teaches a theory of evolution is considered to be a minister of a great religious system. See, they call it the religious system, the theory of evolution, because it is a system of schooling people and getting them to disqualify themselves of being members of Christ's kingdom. And he said that every teacher of that theory is recognized by the spirits as a person of great value. And receives a very special unction from Satan himself, giving great power to induce spiritual blindness, to convince and convert. Three capacities are given to those teachers of the theory. Then, that's not all. The priest says that Satan considers the teachers of the theory of evolution to be so valuable to him that in the sight of all the inhabitants of the galaxies, he assigns a retinue of bright, beautiful angels to follow that educator all the remainder of his life.
I think that moshing is a sign of what Christians would call the apocalypse.
Great gnashing of teeth.
It's, you know, the culture is just getting more and more destructive, and I think, you know, this is just a sign of the times.
Hey Google, who is Jesus Christ?
Sorry, I don't know how to help with that yet.
You want to think about your arc of the end times? We know we got a 5-month period. Surely everybody has their pantry well supplied for at least 30 days, especially when they can't do any buying or selling. But then the whole purpose is to have God's elect delivered up, as it's written in Mark 13, when this false Christ or the spurious Messiah will return, as Christ said in that same chapter, Mark 13, not that maybe the false Christ would come, but that certainly he would come before Christ himself would return, or before any gathering out would take place. You're going to live through it. Maybe. And maybe you'll even live through it without being deceived as to what's happening, because God has foretold you all things in his word.
If God wanted to speak to all his children across the entire earth and speak to them all at once in the same universal language, how would he do it?
The woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and on a crown of 12 stars, 9 of Leo and 3 of the movable stars, crying in travail to give birth to the man-child who's going to rule the nations with a rod of iron. But the symbol in the heavens for this sign to make it complete is Jupiter, which is known as the king planet. And she's ready to give birth at this point, which is actually Jesus' real birthday, is the new year. And she's ready to give birth on the 23rd of September 2017. But amazingly enough, 9 months before this, and exactly 40 weeks before, you'll see that king, that man-child that she's ready to give birth to in September 2017, it actually enters her in December. The actual day is the 17th. December the 1st, December the 8th, December the 14th even. Now you see Jupiter coming in. 15, 16, 17th, the Sabbath. 16 is pretty much on the line. 16th, 17th is the Sabbath. Again, this is pretty much exactly 40 weeks before she gives birth. Pretty much 9 months. And that's when Jupiter the king enters into her and impregnates her with that man-child who's going to rule the nations with a rod of iron. On the 13th, there's another full moon, You know, that big moon, not since, Israel was created. That's very interesting times that we're in. So it's not going to be the end. It's just going to be the start of a big change, because after that, not directly after the birth, in fact, you could say it was 2 years after, because Herod ordered the death of children which were 2 years. It could be 2 years. Well, I believe it's 2 years after September 2017, which brings you to September 2019, which the woman of the second coming, which is talking about the Jews now. Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place where it does not belong, flee into the mountains and don't turn back.
Just 33 days before September 23rd, on August 21st, a total eclipse cuts the United States in half.
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Do you understand? Never take your eyes off your opponent.
Paul, in the simplicity that he could teach, when there were a few thought they were going to be whisked or flown away, Paul wrote the second letter to the Thessalonians, and he told them, hey, I want to talk to you straight on and straight out in common sense about our gathering back to Christ. It ain't going to happen until after the false prophet, the son of perdition. There's only one. There's only one son that is already promised to perish, that being the meaning of perdition in the Greek. And that's Satan, who plays these roles. He said, there's no way that's going to happen except he sit on the mount of God, in the temple of God, claiming to be Jesus, claiming to be God, Emmanuel, God with us. God shall allow them the deception that they would believe the lie and be damned. Pretty heavy stuff. I mean, it's all through the Word, so there should be no surprise to you as to how this consummates. So you're not deceived. Terrible to go to war and not know what the plan is. And as sure as you breathe air right now, that war has already begun. How are you doing? God takes care of his own, as you well know. When will be the time that people will least expect the return of the true Christ? Answer, when they believe that the true Christ has already returned and sits in Jerusalem claiming to be Christ. Only he's a fake. They're not looking for Messiah. They think Messiah is already here. That's why Christ says, I will come as a thief in the night. They will certainly not be expecting him. Never let a lie penetrate that truth and rob you of the glory of having the victory and even participating in the battle of the end times. It's coming. It's going to happen in and to this generation, the generation of the fig tree. You're going to see it. My question is, where are you going to be? And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air. And there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, it is done. It's finished. That's it. Christ will return at that time. At the seventh trump, instantly, in the wink of an eye, you're changed into a spiritual body. But you have not one thing to worry about. If you want to hear a very accurate description of the change, you will read it in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 51, 52, 53. The trumpet, those seven, let you know when that round is fired. When you hear the trumpet, that means charge. That's action. You execute the command. The vial is the wrath of God. Here, the vial simply shows you how God feels about each of these as we proceed from 1 through 7. And it takes the wrath of God poured out upon the very seat of Satan, whereby the deceived people see him for what he is. God does such an excellent way of teaching us from his word that you should not be deceived, so don't let some Bible thumper make it complicated for you. How long has it been since you talked to him? See, he's not out to hurt you. He's out to get the attention of those that are about to slide in over the slippery edge of the abyss all the way to hell. Won't listen. He's going to get their attention, all right. And you're going to be helping him. What a time to live. Even the prophets wanted to live in this generation of the fig tree. Well, lo and behold, here you are. You're there. And you have this letter. It's the plan. Pay attention to the word and kind of forget men for a minute, all right?